Good morning and welcome to the webinar. Sorry everybody for being a bit late. We had a slight audio problem with one of the speakers. So as you can see from the slide, I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the second day of our summer course. You will notice on the bottom of the slide that there's an event code for Slido. All during the webinar, we will be running polls and questions from our teachers and speakers. I encourage you to open the app either on your phone or on the computer and take part in the debate. You can also drop any questions you may have during the entire webinar in either the chat option or the question option that you have here in this webinar, or you can use Slido for that as well. My colleagues and I will be monitoring your questions, and at appropriate intervals, we will be putting them forward to our honored speakers. So today we will be speaking about social enterprises, but more or less you will take away what I hope are aspects of project management, but seen through the lens of social innovation. I am assuming that all of you have joined us because you want to explore the ins and outs of project management. Some of you may be familiar with social economy, which is the fil rouge for today. If you don't, social enterprises are companies that do not seek profit, but rather put societal objectives first. Because profit maximization is not their primary goal, a social enterprise often operates differently than a standard company. However, this does not mean that social enterprises cannot be profitable. It is simply that their priority is to reinvest profits into their social mission rather than fund payouts to shareholders as you would do in a traditional commercial company. So because of this, social enterprises can take many forms. They range from very small local initiatives, even set up by citizens, for instance, to huge players like the Spanish Mondragon concern, which is the largest industrial cooperative in the world. I will not bore you with too many details because our esteemed speakers are far better equipped in the matter than I am. But you have to know that social economy is really a force to be reckoned with. According to recent Eurostat data, there are 2 million social economy enterprises in Europe, representing 10% of all businesses in the European Union. So more than 11 million people, which is about 6% of EU employees, work for social economy enterprises. Moreover, the social economy sector has proven to be far more resilient in crisis situations like the financial crisis we had a number of years ago and this current COVID-19 pandemic. So I will not bore you further with my explanations. And I will give the floor to David Jepson. David is a member of the Eurada Eminence Grise Club, and he was involved in setting up the organization some 30 years ago. He has worked in economic development and labor market consultancy in most EU member states, Turkey, the Ukraine, Afghanistan, and other places. In recent years, David's work has focused on social innovation, including economic impact of the aging population and economic inclusion of refugees and migrants. David was a national expert in European Commission, visiting research fellow in the School for Social Policy at Anglia University, and he was also an elected member of Birmingham City Council for more than 10 years. So I give the floor to David. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? All right, okay. Hi there. Can you hear me? First slide. Can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly, David.
Okay,
Lisa?
right. Okay, so what to have the first slide? Okay, so firstly, it's a pleasure to be involved yet again in a Eurada summer school, obviously in very different circumstances the previous years. The technology we have managed to overcome. So welcome everybody to this session, unusual though it may be. During this presentation, I want to talk about 3 or 4 different things. Firstly, I want to say a little bit about projects. Then I want to say a little bit about social innovation. And then I want to say a little bit about refugees and migrants as an example of social innovation as the first presentation of this particular panel. And just also start to say thank you so much for Tessa and the colleagues from URADA for organizing this, because clearly in this new normal, as we say in English, this is a strange world, and getting the technology to work as well as the content has not been an easy process. So, firstly, next slide. Well, I think Tessa has already introduced me, so we can skip to the next slide after that. So firstly, when starting any project, the first question to ask is, what problem are we trying to solve? Who is going to solve the problem? Why do we need to solve the problem? How will it be solved? When will it be solved? And what will be the solution? Next slide. So firstly, any project application, we need to define what the problem is and what we need to do to tackle it. And also why existing provision, existing initiatives, existing programs are not resolving the problem. Why do we need to do something new? Who will benefit from the project? And what are the different options and solutions to implement it? And crucially, and this is the starting point for social innovation, how will the project be sustainable, both socially, economically, and environmentally? I've been working on European and other projects for many years, and very often the project itself could be successful, but after a few years, there's no long-term impact. We see nothing for its consequence. And if it's not sustainable, socially, environmentally, and economically, then we failed in our task. So how can we make sure that the project is sustainable in the longer term once the money stops flowing and once we are out of the actual project implementation? How do we ensure long-term impact? Next slide, I think. So in regional development, we often face a number of common problems. Of course, differs between areas, but it can include, for example, we're over-dependent on one or two specific sectors, and we need innovation and new types of economic activity. Maybe also we lack skills and know-how in our local labour market. Also, we may need more enterprise, more new enterprises, more startups, more small business development. The region, we may lack competitiveness internally or externally. There may be also, crucially, conflicts between economic development and social change. I think in many EU member states, many regions, we see a contrast between an economy which has been growing and has benefited a large minority of people, but other groups of people who have left behind that process of economic growth and development, which in terms of social cohesion in the long term is not sustainable. So how do we reconcile those conflicts? And lastly, obviously, the coronavirus has changed everything. We don't know the long-term impact, but nevertheless, we know that in the short term, it's transformed, not necessarily in a good way, the economies of our localities and regions. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So social innovation. In her introduction, Tessa mentioned a number of topics, which I think I need to briefly mention. So she mentioned social innovation. I'm going to say something about that in a minute. She also mentioned the social economy, which is the part of the economy which takes account of social change, social pressures, and also social value. And she also mentioned social enterprises. Social enterprises are enterprises which are run for not purely for profit purposes. They generate wider social benefit as well as making some form of economic return for the people who own and run the enterprise. But I would want to say that social enterprises are just one vehicle for achieving social innovation. You can achieve social innovation through straightforward, ordinary private enterprises, through public organizations, through civic society organizations. Social innovation is an overall paradigm, and social enterprises are one method of achieving social innovation. And I would say sometimes social enterprises fail to achieve social innovation, even though they're well-intentioned. So a little bit about social innovation and what do I think it means. Firstly, it's basically a paradigm shift. It's about new ideas and new solutions and new relationships. It's not just more of the same in relation to key demographic, social, and cultural changes. it also means that the benefits derived from social innovation will be shared by both the wider community and by the particular actors and organizations who are involved in implementing it. And it really requires new relationships and networks between stakeholders in territories, cross-sectoral working, new capabilities, and more effective use of resources. And lastly, social innovation is not the prerogative of one organization. It requires a collaborative approach, usually involving elements of government at local or regional level, the private sector, as well as non-profit organizations. So it's a paradigm shift, and it's about looking at social change and seeing how that can be used as a vehicle for economic development in a sustainable way. And the question for us, I guess, is how does social change and social innovation relate to local and regional development? Next slide, please. So here are some of the drivers for social change. How does it happen? And I'm not going to read out the elements of this diagram. It's in the slides that are provided. But there are a number of drivers which can propel the changes in demography and in social characteristics into economic development. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so currently there are a number of different drivers for social change. There are many actually, but just some that I can mention now to give you examples. Demographic changes which have major impacts on local and regional development. Firstly, in most EU member states, in most regions, we've got aging populations with more older people, including some very old people who've got complex needs, and fewer younger people. And that in itself has a huge impact on local and regional development in the medium and longer term. We have people who are entering the labour market later. In the immediate period after the Second World War, most people started work when they were between 16 and 18. Now, many people start work when they're 21, 22, 23. And immediately after the Second World War, most men, at least, retired when they were 65. They lived for another 4 or 5 years, and then they died. So they were the same age as me, basically, now doing this. But now many people stop work earlier than that, and they maybe live to 90 or 100 years old. So we have a much smaller pool of people who are economically active. And in some regions, we have fewer younger people as well. So we have more older people, we have fewer younger people. And clearly that has consequences both in terms of the labour market, the demand for goods and services, and public spending and public finances. Next slide, please. Another demographic change which has big implications for the economy and for regional development is the fact that we have huge population movements in the world, including in the European Union member states, of which, of course, the UK is no longer one. We are no longer a member state of the EU, unfortunately. But we have migrants, for example, seeking work from third countries. We have refugees fleeing conflict. We've seen huge flows of people across the Mediterranean into Italy and Spain and other southern European countries, from Turkey into Greece and onward through Europe into Germany and other EU member states in very large numbers in the last few years, as well as migrants. We've also seen big migrations within the European Union. For example, now Polish, I think, is supposed to be the second largest language in the UK after English. So we've had a huge population shift within the EU, into the EU for work, and from refugees fleeing conflict. And most evidence suggests this is a long-term trend. Many refugees and migrants are highly skilled, but many are also unemployed or are stuck in what we call entry-level work or even illegal work. And this in itself has big implications for alienation, for isolation, and also we're not making the best use of human resources for the purposes of economic and regional development. Next slide, please. So refugees and migrants, we need to see them as an asset, as a business case, not just as a refugees and migrants. Don't just see them as a problem or a humanitarian issue. They are actually an asset if we use them in the right way for local and regional development. I'm now working quite often for an organization called ACH, which is an NGO, which is providing support for refugees and migrants in the UK to enter the labour market, but more crucially to progress within the labour market. And this is very important in terms of wider integration and in terms of added value within the economy. And also, I think there's strong evidence to say that diversity brings innovation through new ideas, products, services, and networks. The mayor of Lisbon, I once heard say, once say that cities are about innovation. Innovation comes from diversity, and without diversity, cities and regions are dead. So in Europe, we badly need more innovation, and we need diversity because that generates innovation. And so one of the things we need to do is to upskill refugees and migrants, move them towards medium level work, higher level work, away from just entry level work like fruit picking or distribution or driving taxis. We don't want to see refugees and migrants doing that. We want to see them doing higher level work. And that means, for example, accessing social networks, social capital, as well as vocational training and other support. And we also need to notice that migrants and refugees have a high propensity to set up their own small businesses. They're a major driver of enterprise, and we need to make sure that the mainstream business support infrastructure is geared up to support those migrant and refugee businesses, which are potentially a big asset for our local and regional development. And lastly, for this slide, we can't help but say that the coronavirus makes us need to rethink what skills are really important and what is the concept of skills we need to use when we're recruiting and developing staff. For example, I'm highly skilled probably, but my work is not really that essential, I could say. But the person who delivers my groceries to the door hasn't got skills in a traditional sense, but their role in society is crucial, without which I'm not going to get anything to eat. So we may need to rethink what we mean by skills in the future. Next slide, please. So in terms of moving forward with projects in social innovation, we need to consider what project solutions can move social innovation to attain economic development objectives. So how can we make our local labour markets more effective? How can we make our local industry more competitive? And how can we make more small businesses in our localities using social change as a driver? Those regions who harness social change will make progress. Those regions who ignore it or pretend it's not there will probably lag behind. What partners and stakeholders do we need to involve to achieve these projects? At EU level, there are a whole range of programs which can be used in different ways to fund social innovation, to fund economic development at regional level by using social innovation and social change. So ERDF, Urban Innovative Actions, European Social Fund, AMIF, which is a particular pot of money for refugees, Erasmus, Horizon 2020, as well as local and national funding can all be used. And within EURADA, we've got a huge body of expertise in relation to social innovation and some of these topics, which you can also draw on. Next slide. Okay, so practical steps are development of vital steps we could take to help use, for example, refugees and migrants through social innovation to help with regional development. So this is just give an example of some practical steps that we could take, which would help make sure that refugees and migrants are now seen as an asset and are a vehicle for local and regional development by acknowledging the importance of social innovation. So one thing we can do is to develop vital social capital and access to social networks. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that many jobs and many opportunities in our societies are generated by social networks and social capital, what we know. So let's make sure that refugees and migrants have access to that social capital so they can enter the labour market at an appropriate level. We may also need technical and vocational training in particular skills. The skills they may have from the past may not be relevant. They may need to learn new skills and new qualifications. We may also need to build pathways directly to employers, especially in growth sectors, not to channel these people just into traditional entry-level work, but growth sectors such as tech, such as cultural industries, such as environmental enterprises. Let's make sure that we work with employers in those sectors where there might be skill shortages to make sure we have access for opportunities for the groups I'm talking about. Also, language training for refugees and migrants often tends to be very general, tends to be classroom-based, it tends to be very much about very basic language. But we need to make sure that language and communication is much more orientated to work and the practical use in the labour market and in the workplace. So that's another area that we can look at as a practical step. And also the community approach. It's very important that the learning and development of the refugee and migrant communities comes from other people within those communities, as well as from experts who are like me or like many of us from traditional European backgrounds. We need to make sure we transfer knowledge within communities as well as into communities. And lastly, the importance, as I said earlier, of small businesses set up by refugees and migrants often need access to capital. They also need to understand properly rules and regulations. They may need to look at their markets and their products and their services, but they are often a very strong motor for enterprise in our region. So how can we make sure we support those SMEs better than we are doing that at the moment? Next slide, please. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. What I've tried to show is that social innovation is about harnessing social change for the purposes of economic development. Social economy is the part of the economy which is linked to social change, and social enterprises are one method, one vehicle for achieving social innovation and change. Also tried to show you some examples of social innovation, which might, for example, lead to the aging population, or more particularly looking at refugees and migrants and how they can become a vehicle for local and regional development. And just to give the practical steps that could be taken in order to use this form of social innovation to inform regional and local development. And I guess what we're now trying to do in the rest of the session is look at how projects could be developed in the context of social innovation to meet the needs of local and regional development purposes, which means looking at the practical steps to elaborate, design, and implement the project. So I think I'll stop at this point. Thank you for listening. Hope it was useful, and hand back to Tessa for the next session. Of course, any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, David. Actually, I'm really happy that you spent so much time speaking about migrant entrepreneurship, because one of my colleagues and myself in UREDA, we are working on a project called EMEN, which stands for European Migrant Entrepreneurship Network. And I think that the things you invoked, which is that upskilling is vital, and setting up their own businesses is something very important for migrants, is really something that came as learnings from this project as well. This project worked through these communities of practice, and now the project is nearing its end, and it's looking at setting up a more sustainable network for the future, for years to come, because obviously this topic will remain important. So if anybody is interested in practice of the type of project that David was talking about, we encourage you to go and have a look at EMEN Network, where you will be able to find more information. So also, for those of you that didn't find their way yet to our Slido, the code is 9879, and I encourage you to go there, because Alberto, my colleague behind the scenes, working very hard. You don't see him, but he's working and he's there. He has launched a poll with questions that David is asking to all of you, and we will call up the results in a while. We give you a few moments to vote, so please go there. In the meantime, I've seen, David, if you are available for this question, that people have been dropping questions all over the place. They're asking, what is an example of your personal favorite social innovation project?
Okay, well, one thing we're working at the moment in Bristol, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So an example of a project then, one example of a project is, firstly, a project which basically is trying to put refugees and migrants into growth sectors of the labour market. So we're working with the professional business services sector in Bristol, which means, for example, accountancy, business legal practices, people doing marketing and development, the big consultancy companies who provide business services. We're trying to develop pathways for refugees and migrants to gain access to employment in those sectors. Because although some of the jobs they have are very highly paid and you need very serious qualifications to do them, half of the jobs are not like that. They're IT, they're marketing, they're administration, but quite well paid and important jobs. So, and many of the refugees and migrants we work with have no idea that those jobs even exist, never mind how to access them or how to get them. So we're trying to develop pathways, starting with building confidence so that refugees and migrants are aware that those sort of work exist, looking at some of the social barriers, some of the sort of cultural barriers to accessing the work, maybe some language training, as well as obviously, when it comes to it, vocational and technical skills to actually do the work that they need done. So that's one example, pathways into growth sector employment. And another one that we're trying to work on is in relation to small businesses for migrant communities. Many of them are deterred by the fact that the only investment finance they can get is loan capital, where you have to repay interest. There's two problems with that. If you're from a Muslim background, you don't want to repay interest because it's not proper under Islamic traditions to repay interest. And even people who are not Muslims, people from other backgrounds, find the idea of borrowing large amounts of money, having to repay interest, having debt, they find it an alienating way of obtaining relatively small amounts of money. So we're trying to develop new financial instruments linked to profit sharing, which would mean that there was availability of capital, which is not linked to interest payments and debt financing. And that would allow small businesses from those communities to have access to small amounts of capital, maybe 500 euros, maybe 5,000 euros, a small amount of capital to develop their businesses. That's another example, new forms of finance for migrant and refugee businesses.
Sounds really interesting. David, you would have a link or a document about that we can share and circulate later on?
Something for sure, yeah.
Great. I think that many people will be interested in this.
Yeah, I can send you.
I'm going to have a look. I have another remark for you, another question from Carmen. I'm assuming Carmen is from Spain. I agree on the statement diversity brings innovation, but I also think that we should use innovations to keep promoting diversity in disruptive ways. So, voila.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, yeah.
And then...
Yes, I mean, I've worked for 30 years in teams of international teams of people from different member states, different countries. And it's always true that on the one hand, it can be sometimes a little bit more difficult because people have different cultural backgrounds, social backgrounds. So initially it can be more difficult, but in the long term, it's much more creative to have people from, different genders, different ages, different cultural backgrounds. I think it's much more creative than if everybody's the same. If everybody are English, middle-class, white men, it might be easier initially, but it's more boring and it doesn't actually create very much interest. So I think it's absolutely true that you're right to say that diversity brings some level of disruption, and that disruption also brings new thinking about both services, about how to do things, about products, and about how to run society. So I agree. I think that's true.
Okay, somebody's asking, I think it's a housekeeping question, could you send a link or info where the poll is? So you have to go in a browser to Slido, which is the poll solution that we are using, and I will repeat. It's so novel, all these things. David, it's forcing us out of our comfort zone, this COVID. So this code that you will have to use to enter the Slido is, I repeat, 9879. Okay, by now I think that some of the people will have found their way there already. So maybe we can give the floor for a few seconds to my colleague Alberto, who can show to David.
I don't see Slido myself, but...
So Alberto, can you call up the results of the poll this far, please? So David can comment on it.
Okay, I can see that. Can you still hear me okay?
We still hear you, David.
Okay, so I'm looking at this. The main characteristics, isolation, not included, poor, social problems, blah, blah, blah. Okay, these are mostly quite negative, I would say. I think you could also say that, as we just said, refugees and migrants also bring innovation, they bring diversity. What would we do in Europe now without food from migrant communities? I lived in Brussels nearly 30 years ago, and it's changed a lot now because you can get Moroccan food, you can get Turkish food, you can get Indian food, you can get food from all sorts of different cultures that when I lived in Brussels 30 years ago, you couldn't get very much. So I think that the characteristics I see there are all, of course, to some extent true, and there are problems there. But I think we also need to think a little bit more positively about the huge contribution that migrants and refugees have made to European cities and regions.
Okay, Alberto, can you show us the next one? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, this is very typical, I think, of most cities and regions that, to a large extent, refugees and migrants end up in what we would call entry-level work, which means work which is really the job that people get first off when they enter the labour market. And there are a number of course, these jobs are important. We need them to be done. It's not to be negative, but there are a number of problems with it. Firstly, there's research done in the UK by Oxford University, amongst other people, show that when especially refugees and migrants go into these sectors, they never leave them. So it's okay for people to work in these sectors, but we want progression, that they move from this sector into something better. And if they're only always going to be picking strawberries, they're likely to become alienated in society. Because if you had to pick strawberries for your whole life, you would be too. So whilst we do need these jobs, we don't want people to be always in them for their whole lives. And second point is, we're obviously wasting people's talent. The two examples are, I know there was a Vietnamese math professor discovered picking strawberries somewhere or other. And also in the West Midlands, in Birmingham, it was found that was a Syrian leading eye surgeon got stacking shelves in a supermarket. Now, I don't know what happened to the math professor, but the eye surgeon is now working in the hospital doing eye surgery and paying more taxes than he was ever earning stacking the supermarket. So it's not just for the benefit of him, it's also the benefit of society, because he's now paying a lot of tax apart from anything else. So we're wasting talent. And lastly, there are people in our indigenous communities who need access to these entry-level jobs. In Bristol, where I'm sitting, we have quite a large number of young people who don't have work. And partly the problem is that the refugees and migrants are doing these jobs. So we need to also make sure that those people in our societies who really need to work in these sectors have access to those jobs. So I think we need the labour market to be a little bit more dynamic. It's fine for people to do entry-level work, but we need them to move forward through progression into other forms of work.
I couldn't agree more. I think we have another question coming up.
Have a look.
Okay.
Priceless.
So what would be the practical steps needed to develop pathways into more sustainable, better quality employment? Social integration programs really sticks out here, of course. The other ones are good.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, all of these, of course, they're all valid points. I just must make one overall point, which is from our point, the point of view of the work I do, to emphasize that working with refugees and migrants shouldn't be just regarded as a humanitarian issue or because it's nice, right? Since I've been working in this field, I come across a common thing. People say, "What are you doing now, David?" I say, "I'm working with refugees and migrants." And then they say, "Oh, that's so lovely. So nice you're doing that." They love it because it's socially very, for liberal people, very popular to do that sort of thing. But it shouldn't be just regarded as something nice, right? We should be doing it for our own self-interest and for the purposes of what I call a business case. It's in the interest of wider society and employers to make the best use of people's skills, not just being nice to people. So I think the business case, that it's about our overall economies and about the fact that our localities and our regions are not going to be as competitive as they could be if we don't use everybody's talent properly. And that's not just about refugees and migrants, that's also about gender equality, about young people. It's about across the labour market. We need to make sure it's more dynamic and more responsive to using people's abilities and skills properly.
I couldn't agree more. I did have another question. I'm looking in my phone at the same time, multitasking all over the place. So somebody from Turkey is asking, David, can you elaborate on the differences between social innovation and social entrepreneurship? Do social enterprises need to be non-profit oriented?
Okay, well, nice to hear somebody from Turkey, because I know Turkey has absorbed a huge number of migrants and refugees, and what I know has done a fantastic job actually in responding to refugees and migrants. So good to have somebody from Turkey here, because you may know a lot more about this than me, in fact. Because in the UK, to be honest, we haven't absorbed many refugees and migrants, and we've not done a very good job in that. In terms of the point you mentioned about the difference between social enterprise and social innovation, social innovation is, as I said, it's a broad concept about how do you capture social change to benefit economic development. Because there are three things you can do. You can either ignore social change, pretend it's got nothing to do with economic development, you can try and fight against it and say, you know, refugees and migrants, they should all be locked up, or old people should all just be put in homes, or something like that. Or you can try and capture social innovation and use it positively for the purposes of economic development. So we're saying that's what we should do, because those localities and regions who do that are more likely to be successful, as the Mayor of Lisbon rightly said. And social enterprises, as you say, quite often, it varies between member states and countries, but quite often requires a particular legal format to say that something will run as an enterprise. So it's not just a community organization, not just a voluntary organization. For example, it might well charge for its services, people pay to use the services or the products, but it will also have a wider social benefit, and that the profit won't just be given to the owner or a shareholder. The profit will somehow be distributed more widely. Both profits financially and the wider social benefit will be transferred to the wider society somehow. So social enterprises are a mechanism for attaining social innovation. But personally, I have some doubts about social enterprises. In the UK, they often tend to be very marginal. Some of them are useful. They often, the others tend to be done by very liberal, nice middle-class people, but they don't always benefit the people that they should. And also, quite a lot of straightforward private enterprises have a social benefit that they don't themselves recognize. So social enterprises are a useful vehicle, but they're only one element of the wider concept of social innovation and social economy, which can also be achieved by other methods.
So I think that was it. Thank you, David. We will come back to you later during the conference. I'm going to hand the floor to our colleague Paula now. So
I'm going to stay online now for another hour, and then I'll have to go.
Great.
Okay.
So you will be there for the final debate. I will try to moderate in the time. Thank you, David.
Yeah, okay. Bye for now. Thank you.
So if everything goes well, we should have Paula showing on the screen in a few minutes, plus her presentation. Hello, Paula. So I will introduce Paula. She is graduated in political science and law in European labor studies and social policies. Paula has been working for Acció, the agency for business competitiveness of the government of Catalonia, for 6 years as an international project manager for social economy. I meet Paula all the time, by the way. She is the coordinator of Interreg Europe project RACE. Besides, she manages international projects for the Catalan social enterprises, which there are many. She assesses them in their internationalization strategy, identifies international business opportunities, and organizes international prospective missions for social enterprises. And now I'm going to shut up and give the floor to Paula.
Thank you very much, Tessa. I'm going to show my screen. I think you may be seeing it, right? So thank you very much to Eurada. For me, it's an honor and a pleasure to be today here teaching you in the summer course, because last year I was a student in the summer course. I had a great time, and the most important thing is that I learned a lot being a student in this course. It's a pity that due to the coronavirus situation this year, the edition has to be online and reduced on time. But this edition, I think, is very special as well. It's very interactive, very dynamic, very practical, and I am sure you will learn a lot from it. So my presentation will be about leading a European project. I don't want to give you theory here, mainly because there is no theory in managing European projects. The only theory, if you want, can be knowing how European institutions work, and knowing very well the insights of the call and the type of project you are doing. But then I would say that your school has to be the school of experience, and that's why I want to tell you about my experience coordinating the European project RACE, which has been going on since January 2017, so more than 3 years already with this project. Tessa already introduced me and Acció, so I won't spend time on this slide. What I want you is to take with me a journey through the stages of the RACE expedition. So let's go deeper in learning what's RACE, and we will learn about project management since the conception of the RACE project until the implementation. So here you have my first question for you. If you go to Slido, you will probably see it. So question 1, for you, it's an open question, so please write what the thing that first comes to your mind. I want to know, what does the Mountaineers picture suggest to you? And this is important for the race project and for my explanation now. So please, if you can write something, we will go now with Alberto to check quickly your answers and go on. I am very curious because I am a big fan of this picture and I want to know what it's suggesting to you.
So by now, Alberto should have the poll running. I'm going to take part in the poll as well.
Yeah, please, Tessa. I know you are a big fan of the picture too.
Especially what you did with it in the Project Slam of Interact.
Yes, now you are doing some spoiler, but yes. Okay, 15 answers, 16, very well. This is rising. So I think, Alberto, we can look at the answers too. Oh, no, this is the second question.
Yeah, we need only the answers to the first one.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, cooperation, teamwork, collaboration, group work, climbing to success, very well. The steps for success, the need to work together, support, team, community, the force of the team, a collaborative environment to achieve objectives. I see that collaboration and cooperation are the biggest words, and I couldn't agree more. I want to explain now the story behind this picture, so I will go on again to changing my screen. Okay. I don't know if I am sharing my screen. Can you confirm, Tessa?
I'm not seeing your screen for the moment.
Okay. Now you are, right?
Now I am. Perfect.
Okay, that's cool. So I want to explain that the lead partner journey begins before the project's official start date. So as you know, at the preparing up the project proposal, coming with the idea, finding the right partners, writing the proposal, getting the approval, it takes a long time. So first of all, you have to have very clear in mind why you want to do a European project. You cannot think, which is a common mistake, oh, there's money in Europe to finance my activities, so I want to do a project for having more money for my organization. This is a mistake. There has to be a rationale and a reason behind the European project, always. What kind of project you want to do? Do you want to do a project to develop new technology? You go to Horizon 2020. Do you want to do a project to exchange experiences and learn from other regions? Better go for Interreg. And what do you want to achieve with it? You want to improve what your organization is doing? You want to help your enterprises more and better? What do you want to do? You are never on this alone. So David was talking before about identifying problems. I agree with this, but I prefer saying identifying challenges because challenges has a positive meaning. So you have to identify which is your own challenge and compare it to the European challenge. And in the proposal, you always have to identify which is your problem in Europe. I mean, this is the example for the race project, right? As Tessa explained, in Axio, we help social enterprises in their internationalization processes. Because here in Catalonia, the tradition for the social economy is very strong. Social enterprises represent 2% of the GPD, and they employ a lot of workers. We have many cooperatives, foundations, associations that are working in cooperation with the public sector to help people with special needs to be happier, to have work, to receive care, whatever. And at the same time, they produce services and goods with social impact. So we know that for these enterprises, as Tessa explained at the beginning, it's more difficult to be competitive in the global market. So we carry out several services for them from Axio to help them to internationalize. Most of these services are free, and we can say that we are pioneer in Europe in helping them. But we wanted to know, this was in year 2016, okay, Axio is doing this and we think we are doing it well, but we don't know, because we don't know what other regions and similar agencies are doing in Europe to help social enterprises to be more competitive. So we decided to lead a European project on this topic. So we started identifying partners. Afterwards, I will talk about how we chose the partners. And we found which was the European challenge for this. So there was in Interreg Europe, there is this topic on SMEs competitiveness. We can consider that social enterprises are in this category. Here you have the figures that Tesha mentioned, so I won't stop in that. But there is a big problem or big challenge from which Catalonia is part. So you see, this is the framework of this. Afterwards, we have to select the right partners. Here you have a very good tool, especially if you belong to a regional development agency, which is Eurada. Eurada is there to help you to find partners. As well, you can count on the own resources of your organization. For instance, in Axio, we have long experience participating in European projects. At the moment, we participate in 13 and we coordinate 6. So the organization has a big portfolio of possible agencies with which to work together. But as the social economy field is quite new, this was not very easy at the beginning. So we attended as well the Interreg Europe's Info Day. These are very interesting tools. At the same time, if you are, I don't know if you are familiar with Interreg, I think it's something you will receive an explanation tomorrow, if I'm not wrong. But for Interreg Europe, especially, you have to balance very well the regions from Europe. So you must include a partner from the East, a partner from the North, a partner from Ireland, and Scotland too. So we included in the partnership Hungary, Scotland, and the west of Ireland, Emilia-Romagna in Italy, Örebro in Sweden. Scottish Enterprise, I think I already mentioned. And then in this project, we are very lucky because it was a very wise choice, I think, to introduce as well an academic partner, which is the Center for Social Innovation in Austria, which helps us with the quality management of every deliverable in the project. So it's good to do this because, as you know, the coordinator has a duality, which is that you are coordinating. So it means that you are like the teacher of everyone. I will enter afterwards in details on, well, things that went well and things that went wrong in the RAISE project. But at the same time, you are a project partner. So you have to undertake all the activities and at the same time tell to people how to do the things. So if you have an academic partner on board, this is much more smooth. And it's very good. And it's people that really are used to preparing, for example, guides or reports or things that maybe you, with a methodology especially, you are not very familiar with. So I definitely advise including a partner like this. So then we have identified all the partners and it's time to write the proposal. This is a crucial moment in a project. So here goes my second question for you. If you go to Slido, you will be able to check it, but you will have to choose one of these options. So how should the proposal be written? Option A is each project partner prepares their own version. B, the lead partner writes everything. C, partners write all together in a collaborative document. Or D, the lead partner prepares the first draft. If you, well, I'm sure you are already on Slido and choosing the answer. So let's see. Okay, so we have 81% for option C, 20 now. Well, it's moving, but yeah, most of all went for option C. Okay, well, for me, the right choice would be option D, but I have to say that there are no right or bad choices on this. I mean, what works better for a lead partner cannot work well for another one. I would choose option D, and I tell you why. Because it's crucial to ensure consistency. So I always agree on, okay, we have the project idea, we are going to prepare the first draft, you establish a methodology and a way of writing, And then you indicate to partners, of course, they can propose amendments to the common parts, but then you are very concrete and very specific on, okay, you now have to fill this section about you. It's good as well to take profit of each partner's strengths. So, for example, I know that when Neurada is involved in a European project, they are not in RACE, but I hope to work with them someday in a project. I know that they are very good taking part of the work package of communication. So if you have a partner that would be willing to take care of one of these activities, being communication or dissemination or whatever, it's very good to establish this in the proposal already. Okay, but writing in a collaborative document, it's always a tool. I think that collaborative documents are very good, but I think that just to establish the guidelines and to be just giving instructions and all this, much better option D, but it's just an advice. And never, I mean, everyone preparing an own version and then put everything together is a mess, and it would make people lose a lot of time. And writing everything for the lead partner, it's not an option, because being the lead partner always takes a lot of time. But if you have to do all the job, I mean, just better not do a project, because the project is a collaborative thing. Okay, and cooperation, as you very well said at the beginning when you saw the project's poster, is key. So if we can go back to my presentation. Great. Okay, so now congratulations. After a year, when you had already almost forgotten about the project, you learned that your project is approved. So now it's time, as I always say, to raise the project. And here, the role of the leader is key to ensure success. So here goes my question 3 for you. This question, Alberto, it's not necessary that you show me now the answers, because we are going to check them at the end. So I want you to write while I'm speaking, which are the most important qualities that you think that a project leader should have. I think that yesterday with Bogdan, you did something about this, so maybe you already have hints here, but I think it's key to learn about these qualities, okay? I think that, first of all, a clear work plan is essential. The work plan has already been established in the project proposal, but now it's time to take everything into action. So in the RACE project, we were always very strict with deadlines, very, very strict, but at the same time, we always allowed margin for contingencies. What do I mean? I mean that we were generous with deadlines. For example, we were thinking about a real deadline, but then the deadline that we gave to partners was a deadline that was, for instance, 2 weeks before, because we know that the partners, for example, from Sweden or from Italy, they would be always delivering on time, but we know how other partners go. So we know that maybe they are more busy, or the project is not a big priority for them, so we know that they will deliver later, and that's why we gave them later, this flexibility. And always give example. As I said at the beginning, you are as well a project partner. What I did sometimes to facilitate things was, for instance, we were preparing the good practices guide of the project. What did I do? I did the first good practice myself. So our methodology, our academic partner together with me prepared the methodology, and I did the first example, and then everyone replicated that. So you have to be a teacher and a model for your project partners. Some tips that worked with me in creating a committed partnership. From the beginning, we all must understand that we are sharing a common goal. We are not doing this project for doing the project. We are doing this project because we want, in the case of RACE, to help our social enterprises to be more competitive in the global market by developing new business tools that can help them. So at the end, going to Scotland or to Ireland or to Sweden, it's not a holiday trip. It's just a business trip. When we went there, we had our eyes open. We committed all our stakeholders to look what was working in that region, and what could be replicated in our regions. And this is present in every activity of the project. I am a very theater person, I can say, which I think is good when you are a lead partner, because there is a public relations things that has to be there. If you are very shy Well, you can be a lead partner too, but you should work a lot in this public relations part of your project, because the essence of Interreg projects many times, it's very sad, but even if you develop very nice tools or guides or reports or whatever, if you don't know how to make them public, how to do dissemination, how to explain them, you are lost, because there are a lot of European projects and yours will be one more. While if you develop strong things, you commit the partnership since the beginning, you are very visual, you have the success ensured. So we develop with the name of the project race. Is very easy to make, word games. So at the beginning, the slogan, we raise this project all together, was created. So what I do in every meeting we had, we raise this project all together, is present. Everyone says this. After every email I send to the partners, I write the slogan. Don't forget, we raise this project all together. So this slogan creates bonds, creates cooperation, and creates a group. Besides, this is what Tessa was saying at the beginning, but we developed the race song. So when we were in a project meeting in one of the minibus, we started singing well, it's not very stupid song, because it's a song that says, if you're social enterprise, raise your hands. This song is very easy, and in every meeting after that, the song was very successful. All the partners liked it to sing the song. We even recorded a video, and then I was the Interreg Europe's representative in a storytelling contest in the Interact Project Slam. If you can see the performance, if you go to YouTube and you write Interact Race Interreg, you will see my performance. So I took inspiration from the race poster and project picture with the mountaineers. I dressed myself as mountaineer. I did a lot of things. I won't spoil because you really have to see the video. And we sang the race song as well. And all the audience in the conference room stood up, all 300 people, I think, and everyone was singing with me and with project partners which were behind in the video, singing the race song, and I got to win the first prize of the contest, which is a thing that, believe it or not, after 2 years of winning that, I am still talking about this, and in every interview they make to me, they are asking about the contest. So this is to ensure and to tell you that visibility and storytelling and knowing how to develop a storytelling of your project is very important. I hope that maybe Eurada, well, we will see, but if they invite me to participate in further editions of the summer course, I can deliver this time not virtually because it's very difficult, but a session on storytelling, because I really like this and it's a thing I would like to share with you. And here, the last thing, very important, is the importance of after work hours during project meetings. With this, please keep always in mind, I am not saying, please, after every study visit, you have to go and have beers with partners. It's not this. Always never forget that alcohol is not eligible in an Interreg project and in all the projects in general. But I am saying it's very important. It's like in politics, when they say in the corridors, politics are made and not in the big Congress room. It's the same. If you are together after the meeting, you go together to have dinner, you go together to have a walk, you talk, you are creating bonds. Because a European project, and especially an Interreg project, which can last 4 or 5 years, finally you become a family. So in these moments is where you see how people are. You can understand as a lead partner which are the needs. If a person is facing a difficult time, then you can understand better why this partner is delivering late, or why this partner doesn't reply to emails. So if you ensure a good personal relationship, you will be very satisfied with the smooth running of your project. Finally, well, I already said this, but group cohesion is priceless. Here I have introduced you a link. When the course finishes, you can enter this link. This link is Ray's promotional video, and this video has a very nice story. All the pictures I am showing you belong to this video. We took a social enterprise that has a very innovative communication department to do this video. So during the video of the project, you can see a hand that is drawing the story of race. And in this case, this is the slide, which is for me the best one, because each of these different characters is a person from from one of our partners. So for instance, I am the first one that you see at the left, which is the leader, which is the one that is, opening the mountain so everybody can go up. Afterwards, we have our partner from IFCA, we have Anders from Örebro, we have Dara from Scottish Enterprise. Finally, we have Roberta, it's the fifth, which is president of Eurada. Then we have Shimus, and we have Stefan from ZSI. So this was a hint for project partners, but everyone loved to see them in the video. Finally, here, this is my last slide, but I want to grab up what I think that are the keys for success in leading a project. Afterwards, we will see what you said. This is very personal. I mean, as I said at the beginning, there are no rules for this, only the school of life and the school of experience. I think that passion for your project is key. If you are not passionate about your project, nobody will be. I think that commitment is a key as well. Perseverance. You know that when you are the coordinator, sometimes for you the project is the priority, but it cannot be the priority at that moment for your project partners. So you have to be perseverant. You have to send sometimes several reminders. Try not to be to be very insistent, but at the end, I think that I used and worked is never forget the project partner that the European Commission is paying you money for doing this. So if you are not doing this activity, you are not filling your obligations, and this is something that really works. You have to be flexible. In the RACE project, we faced I would say two critical moments. At the beginning of the project, we had a partner that had to drop out for political reasons. So, you know, the politicians that were there when the project was being developed were not the same when we won the project's approval, and they decided that they didn't want to be in the project anymore. So we had to change a partner, and this was an issue because it's very, very complicated. But luckily, as we had identified a partner before that had been interested, but then said no, we could go back to them and luckily bring them on board. But this is a thing that required quickness and flexibility. And another crucial moment was when all the staff of a project partner left. And the staff was replaced, and these people had no idea about the RACE project. So we took this was a challenge because the project had already been implemented for 2 years. So we did a lot of sessions with as lead partner to guide them and help them, because you know it was not their fault and they were very motivated. But as lead partner, you have to be ready for unforeseen circumstances, and you have to act fast. Empathy, as I say, is key. For me, it's something that it's a very good quality. To have vision as well, you must be very innovative. The speech that David gave about innovation was very, very good. And I think that the vision is something, I mean, for instance, when we were seeing for some opportunities to explain the project, we came up with this idea for the storytelling contest in the EU week, and this is something that was not scheduled in the application form, but it appeared, and it was a very good resource that we could use to explain the project. And you have to be very responsible. If you don't give example, who will do the things well? Okay, and finally, the sentence that summarizes everything and is that the project leader is the biggest fan of the project. You have to be fan of your project, you have to be proud, you have to show passion always, and this is for sure a key for success. So, well, my presentation, it ends here. I want to encourage you to visit our Twitter account, to follow us, to visit the webpage, and to follow us on Twitter, on YouTube, sorry. If you enter YouTube, you will see that we made as well some homemade videos of our study visits, so you will be able to see how the RACE partners get on well with each other and work together to develop something that I think is very important. For example, the Örebro region in Sweden already, thanks to the project, established a change in their public policies. So they developed a new law on social economy, and they implemented lots of things inspired from Catalonia, from Scotland, from Emilia-Romagna, and this couldn't be possible without the RACE project. So finally, European projects, I think, are key to implement changes in the region, and they are very useful. So I hope that in the new programming period, we can go on working together with partners more and better. So finally, Alberto, if you can show the results of the last question.
It's taking a few seconds. I wanted to say, Paula, if you are the biggest fan of your own project, I think that Yurada is your second biggest fan.
Ah, you know, I am very happy. It's a pity that we cannot do this edition personally, but next year, I'm sure we can prepare something very nice.
We look forward to it. Okay, the most important qualities a project leader should have. Strong
I cannot
leadership.
see the. Do you still see my screen?
No, Alberto is sharing his now.
Okay, cool.
So the most
Yeah.
important thing coming forward is strong leadership, which in your case, it's not a problem for race at all.
I see. Empathy is there, organization skills, experience, good networking skills, compromising, imaginative, visionary. These are very, very good qualities. Active listening, flexibility, open-minded. Yeah, it's true. And inspiring as well is a key. And yeah, I think that you have to believe in your team. And as I said at the beginning, just help the others to show their potential abilities. So everyone can make a change with these kind of projects. And it's a danger to think, okay, some people, and this is something I don't like, say, okay, yes, a European project is like Erasmus for adults. This is not true. And if it happens, it means that the European Commission has a problem.
Okay, so I think we can close the poll and maybe start launching the next one already for my colleague Alberto behind the scenes. I have one question for you, Paula. We are a bit running over time, but I'm going to allow one question. So the question comes from Lilia Popa. Has a local NGO from a non-member country of the EU the chance to collaborate with a European partner on different matters?
It depends. It depends on the kind of projects. Right now, we just launched, we submitted the expression of interest because the OCDE is launching a new kind of project. We still don't know the budget or whatever about they want to do a project about social economy, interregional project, and they are asking for the expression of interest for partners. So this could allow us to do a project together with non-EU member countries. So we are looking forward for the final tender of this that is going to be launched in December. And at the moment, it's a pity, but I don't know of any other opportunities to collaborate beyond borders. Sometimes more in the cooperation field, when you help third countries, but this is not our issue in Axio. But yes, I am sure that the new opportunities will come, and I hope that the European Union thinks as well in the new programming period about new potentialities in that field.
In any case, people should stay tuned for Yurada's newsletters where we share this type of information.
I have to say that it's one of the best I receive, and sometimes you receive a lot of spam, but you are always very concrete and very practical.
Thank you. We can all learn from one another here.
Yes.
If you don't mind, Paula, I'm going to thank you for this. Hope that you stay on for the final debate. And I'm going to give the floor to Zdenek, who has a problem with the bandwidth. So we will not, unfortunately, be sharing the camera. But if everything goes well, my colleague Ulysses should be able to give the floor to Zdenek over the phone. So thank you, Paula. Zdenek works as a project manager for RERA, which is the Regional Development Agency of South Bohemia in the Czech Republic. They are based in České Budovice. Probably my pronunciation is awful, but Zdenek will tell you how to pronounce it properly. He manages several projects supporting SMEs in the field of social economy or internationalization. Besides SME support, Zdenek also focuses on regional cooperation, environmental issues, and sustainability. Zdenek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for introducing me, and thank you to all the listeners. If we can have the presentation.
Yeah. Ulises, can you call up the presentation, please? Thank you.
Oh, great. So first, I will tell you a little bit about my region and my agency to make you feel the context of what we do here in České Budějovice. By the way, your pronunciation was quite fine. That's all. So next slide, please. Okay, so I come from South Bohemian region. It's a region on the south of Czech Republic. It's not really small. It's not really big. It's only 10,000 square kilometers. However, it's the second largest in Czech Republic. We have about 640,000 inhabitants, which make us a region with the lowest population density in Czech Republic. What we are facing is really, really low unemployment, which was in May still less than 3%. But here comes one of the biggest challenges, because it is expected to grow up to 10% at the end of the year, thanks to the corona crisis. However, since our region is so large, but so with such a small population density, we have a great deal of agriculture, forestry, and fishery, which make it one of the key areas of business for our region. Besides that, we have a lot of manufacturing industry as well, but no heavy industry here. And then, of course, we focus on tourism and services. Next slide, please. Oh, and maybe Tessa, maybe we can do the poll with the questions now before we go to the other part. Tessa, hello. Or Ilaya, can you? Okay, never mind. Maybe. Ah, great. So I have 3 questions for you, and it would be great if you could answer all of them now. So oh, yes, here it is. Well, I know you a little bit better when I will talk about development in the project. So based on your experience, you are new to project implementation, most of you. Okay, next question. Most of you have participated in the Interact programs. Is the most common one for us as well. And the third question. And your role in the project. So some of you were responsible for some part of implementation. Some of you were part of the team. That's good. Okay, great. Thanks very much for showing. I think now we can go back to the presentation. Great. So just a few words about our agency. So we were established in 1999 according to the model of all the regional development agencies in the European Union. Obviously, our aim is economical, social, and cultural development and support of our region. We are quite small agency. We have 8 full-timers, and after we have usually contracted support staff for dedicated project. We are shareholding companies. We have 4 shareholders, which are South Bohemian region is the regional authority. Then it's a Union of Towns and Municipalities of South Bohemia. It's Chamber of Commerce and Chamber of Agriculture. I'm talking about this because it is quite important after for how we interact with stakeholders in our region. Among other activities, we focus on implementation of international projects from different programs. And concerning social economy, we currently have 2 active projects, Social Seeds from Interreg Europe program and Cerusy from Interreg Central Europe. And we have 1 closed from called Census from Interreg Danube, at least in this programming period. Okay, next slide, please. So a little bit about the background that we have and the relations that we have. So as I said, we have 4 key shareholders that help us interact with the environment in our region. Another great aspect is that we have 21 years of experience, and we are in the EU relations ever since 2004, since we joined the union. So our agency is quite known in the region, and it's easier for us to partner up. We have various partner in institutions and organizations on local, regional, and national level. If I should name some, I can say that, for example, when we need to engage companies, we can always ask for help the Chamber of Commerce or Chamber of Agriculture. When we need to engage with towns and municipalities, we can use the Shareholder Union of Towns and Municipalities of South Bohemia. For example, when we need some higher politicians, let's say from ministries, we can either directly contact them or we can use our connection to the regional authority, and they can help us develop this as well. I would say that RERA kind of works as intermediary for innovation flow into the region. So there is a lot of things that we focus on, but we are usually not the key mover. We just usually help to gain the experience to a region and kind of engage with all the stakeholders that are necessary. And after, for example, after a project is done, it's usually a place where we do not engage that much in the same topic. If I should talk about how we work on the project, I would say that it's a joint cooperation of several people. Usually it's a person who has responsibility for implementation and coordination of the project. That's usually me in this part. Then we have a person who understands finances really well, so they do the financial background. And since we are regional development agency and we focus on various topics, we always get ourselves expert in the thematic pool as it is. That way we can implement the projects well. Next slide, please. Should we talk about experiences with projects? I divided this into 3 slides. So first I will talk about project proposal, or if you do not write it, how to get involved in the project. So as Paula said, first idea is to develop your own idea. For us, this is not that much often. We usually join a consortium under another lead partner. We did a lead position a few times, and you can be a lead partner where you have you are the idea bearer and you move the project as a whole. Or for example, we also were signing for a project where we acted as a lead partner, but mostly from the management point of view. The idea development and the content development was in tandem with our Austrian colleagues that were pros in the wood craftsmanships and etc. So you can either be the idea bearer yourself, or you can be just the organization that will manage the project as it is. Or if you do not have or you do not want to develop your own idea, you can join a consortium. There are several ways how to do it. First of them is pool of proposals. In the program's website, usually if there is a space, you can find a pool of proposal. For us, I find this quite not effective, and you can usually see projects with lower quality, or there are more projects with lower quality than higher quality. Another opportunity is your national contact point. When, for example, sometimes we get an email or a call from our national contact point that they were contacted by their counterpart from some other country, and that some organization is looking for a partner in Czech Republic. It doesn't happen really often, but usually it's a good way how to join the proposal, because it's usually led by someone who is really interested to find the partners actively, so you can feel the dynamics quite better. And so far the best option, I would say, is the network of contacts. I think this is the best way how to join a consortium. That if you work, for example, in the field of social innovation, in EU projects, you can see that there is not that many companies or organizations, institutions that focus on this, or rather on development of international projects. So it's not such a big sea, and if you know the people, and for example, if you are part of Eurada as we are, you can get your hands on pretty neat proposals thanks to the people that you know. As Tessa wrote in the chat part of GoToWebinar, it is possible to use Eurada for this as well. So either you have a developed proposal that is completely done or almost completely done, or it's not so clear. So if a lead partner comes to us with a clear vision and clear first draft, usually they develop more and more, and when they come to you, they will ask mostly about your part, your relevance, and your information. This is the easier part, where you basically have to prepare just few sentences about your organizations and why is it relevant for you to be part of the project proposal, and how you connect to other institutions, and so on and so on. And this usually comes in a quite short time before the deadline. Sometimes it's days before the deadlines, when someone is still in a search for a partner. Or you are asked to join a consortium, and then the proposal is not so clear and it is not finished, so you have to join the development team, and you argue and you discuss about the work packages or the activities, the involvement, budget, everything. And if I should talk about eligibility of institution, it's also one of the crucial things in the projects, and sometimes it can be quite tricky, because us as a regional development agency, in some programs we are considered to be public, and in some of them private body. For example, in Interreg programs, we are a public body equivalent because of our shareholders, because they are public institutions, the most of them. But for example, in COSME program, we are considered as private because we are a company that is a joint stock company, and we are operated under the private law. Thus, for COSME program, we are a private institution. So this is something that you should also think, the eligibility of your organization, because it's not the same in all the programs. Another really important aspect is co-financing rate. For us, for example, the current period is 85% co-financing from the European Union and 15% from some other resources. In Czech Republic, the state will not give you a guarantee of any co-financing from their own. So for us, we basically have two options. Option one is that we finance this from ourselves, the 15%. And option two is that we ask our regional authority to be involved more in the projects, and after that they can give us a co-financing. Why am I saying is that to be able to implement a project, you have to have quite a strong financial background, because of the whole process that you have to go through between you spend the money and before you get them back. If I should say a practical case, so in our Social Seeds project, in the 6th period that took place from October 2018 till March 2019, we received the money in December 2019. So imagine if you spend money during October 2018 and you spend this money, and then you have to wait 1 year or more or less almost to receive it back. That's why the financial background is quite important to consider as well, cash flow and stuff. And the project as a whole, it has quite a long process, from the original idea to composition of the proposal to evaluation and results, and then the whole implementation. And when you're done with the implementation, you still have to do the final clarification and come to some closure. So it really can be years for this whole cycle. Okay, we can move to the next slide. Concerning the implementation of projects, I divided this this slide as most of the work packages in most of the projects that I worked on were. Usually you have a work package for management, you have a work package for communication, and then you have some thematic work packages. Usually there is more of them. So concerning the management, there should be definitely a clear division of tasks and the responsibilities between the parties involved. So you have a lead partner. You can also have work package leaders. In the work packages, you can have different tasks that are also led by some other partner. And then at the end, you have each and every partner that is implementing the tasks. What is notable to say, Paula also talked about it as, for example, even though that lead partner has to coordinate the whole project, usually they act as a project partner as well. So most of the activities, they will have to do them as well. So as Paula said, for example, about the good practices, if each partner has to develop them, they have to do it as well, even though that they are lead partner. If we should talk about oversight of the work, so let's say that you are a task leader and you send some work to all the partners. So probably you are responsible for gaining the information back and making it all together. The same but applies if you are a work package leader. So you have to oversight the task leaders, if there are any, and the project partners. And of course, the lead partner have to oversight the whole process as it is. Management concerning, we can also talk about time management and planning. It is something that should not be underestimated as well, and anything as simple as some basic Gantt chart in Excel sheet or even in some sophisticated app can help you to keep track and to see if you are lagging behind or you are great on time. What is important to discuss is that some tasks might require big amount of time. I can say that we were developing a training modules in the census project, and at the beginning, no one really thought about how long it's gonna take us to develop this. And instead of 1 semester, it was 2 semesters and a little bit more. So it is also important to not underestimate the time that you need for some parts. The same goes for service as well. If we should talk about budget, budget planned versus some kind of reality of your spending. Of course, it is really important to keep track of your spending or up-to-date spending. And again, the easiest solution that we have is Excel sheet. It's easy to break down the budget by all the budget lines and all the work packages to a single activities. And if you have the original budget, what was allocated for certain activity, you can always monitor how much you spend, if you're underspending, overspending, or so. This way, suddenly you can see that you have spent half of your first semester money for travels. So in the second semester, you know that you have the dedicated money for the second semester, but you also exactly know the price, the amount that was left over from the first semester, and you can use that as well, by the way. Talking about spending of the budget, usually budget spending is quite a hot topic as well, especially if you are not spending enough. Underspending can be a really big problem in the projects because if you have underspending, it logically for the support office or for the authority means that you either constructed the budget badly or you are not fulfilling the activities and, for example, asking for staff costs in return. So it's usually okay if you have about 75% spending, but if you would spend only, for example, about 40% of the budget from the project, you can be sure that the authorities, they will ask why you spend so much. If it was because your budget was overblown or that you simply did not fulfill the tasks. So that's important as well. And last last category of my budget notes here concerns the changes in budget. It heavily depends on the program, so each program have different rules. But for example, in the Interact projects, we recognize some kind of minor and some kind of major changes. For some of them, you need approval from your lead partner or from the joint secretariat or from the support office. But what is important to say is ideally always consult these changes before, at least with the lead partner, because after that you when you share this information before you make the changes and spend the money, you can be sure that you can make it that way. And another point for management is to keep the most important documents always up to date, in up-to-date versions. This concerns, for example, the application form, the grant agreement, or even the budget sheet, because during the project implementation, you can face changes in the application form. And due to my experience, we had, for example, 8 changes in the application form, maybe more. So it's quite important to always keep the up-to-date documents and, for example, provide them to your controllers as well, and so on. Concerning communication in the projects, well, with the internal communication, my advice would be communicate as much as you can. Intensive communication inside the project is really vital. Even though that, for example, you are lacking behind, and you will let your lead partner know that simply you are not able to do the deadline and that you will be delayed in 2 days or something like this. It's way better than not to say anything. Besides communication during the physical meetings that you might have through the project, repeating video calls are also good. So in some projects, we have a monthly call where we evaluate our progress and we talk to each other, so we are more in touch. It's more friendly. And for the lead partner, or for example for the work package leaders, it's great that they can see the progress in a smaller amounts of time, not once in a half a year, but let's say monthly. After that, they are more flexible. They can talk if something is not going according to the plan. And of course, emailing is also really important. All the important information always will go through email. Nothing surprising there. Concerning the external communication, I think the most important is to communicate the projects well to the stakeholders of the project. For example, during the meetings or during emails, newsletters, whatever. It's important that the project topic will soak into their heads, that you will invite them to the events that you organize, you will give them the up-to-date information, the progress, because if they will take at least part of the information from your project to their daily work, it's really good for you in the future. And concerning communication, I also added project publicity, which is also really important thing to focus on, because if you will use it wrongly, you can have reduced budget for these items that concern the publication, the publicity, like some kind of publications, brochures, posters, everything. And as Paula said as well, don't be shy and promote your projects and step up, because the changes in the ecosystem, they will come most likely if the people around it, the stakeholders or the general public, if they will understand your project, if they will think it's a good idea, if they will understand the changes that you are trying to make, because after that, these key persons, they might become the bearer of the idea, and they can continue even though that your project has ended, for example. And regarding the thematic VPs, we have what should be done is clear description of the tasks. So we also had a project where we had unclear description of one of the activities that we're supposed to do, and at the end it turns out to be quite a horror to do it in the middle of implementation. So if you don't understand something that is written, for example, in the application form, because sometimes we use this Brussels English or this bureaucracy English where you suddenly have an empty column or something. So if you don't understand what it means, like specifically, it's always better to make it clear at the beginning or during the time when you have time to make changes. Should we talk about some expected outcomes of the thematic work packages? Well, for example, if you are doing a survey, you should always give your project partners or from the lead partner to project partner or from the work package leader to project partners the idea, for example, how many answers do you need and who should be the target group. You should specify these things for them in order to receive let's say the same information from each region, even though that it's not going to be same. It goes the same, for example, for seminars as well, and so on and so on. Indicators are also quite important thing that it's important to achieve them because it's something that measures the success of the project. Not entirely, but it is something that is quite visible, and it is one of the easiest way how to say if the project was successful or not. And what I inserted as well is proofread your outputs because as you know, usually the projects, they do not have so many native speakers, and it is quite important also to give the material and the outputs in a proper English. Okay, we can go to the almost last slide. And Another part of the project experience is definitely the reporting, the finances, the closure, and this kind of stuff. So for me, for example, one of the biggest struggle was the difference between, for example, indirect projects where we have a first level control in Czech Republic and then second level control wherever the Joint Secretariat is based, and then with projects that are managed directly in Brussels. With our first level control, we are used to have quite a huge bureaucracy, a lot of documents that are not necessary but still required by them. You have templates for everything, and it's quite a lot of unnecessary work sometimes. And then if I compare it to our experience with projects managed in Brussels, I would say that it's more relaxed and it's not so strict and direct, and sometimes you have to create the templates for your own if you are doing some smaller calls. For example, in Cosme, there are no sheets to fill. You simply have to create them by yourself. So this was for me quite a big difference. Make sure that you follow the rules. There are let's say 3 levels of the rules at least. You have the program rules, you have the national rules, and you have the European rules. And you have to respect which you have higher grounds under which, and so on. Audit is something that luckily I have no personal experience with. It might be mandatory in some countries. In Czech Republic, it is not. So it is always by coincidence if your project is picked up or not for control, except for lead partners. That's different. But as a project partner, it's not mandatory. But it's always good to keep all the receipts, notes, and everything as you need to. Yeah. I was already talking about monitoring of spending, and last thing that that came to my mind was, let's say, some sort of a diary of work done. It can be simply also an Excel sheet or Word document or whatever, where you will write down even the smallest things that you do in the project. For example, that you had a small meeting or you had to complete this task. Because imagine if you are doing a report after half a year, you will most likely not think about everything that you've done, and it's always good to monitor everything that you can and that you have done. Next slide, please. Okay, so that will be all from me. I hope it was at least a little bit interesting for you, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them.
Sorry for the noise. It's my stomach starting to grumble, I think. We are slightly over time, but I do have a question from Ali from Turkey for you, Zdenek. Ali is asking that whether you would consider cooperating with them, with their organization. So they reward many entrepreneurs with the entrepreneurship competition that they organize every year. Would you have an incubation program that you can direct their entrepreneurs to inside of your organization?
Well, we do not have an incubator program in our agency, but we are always keen to cooperation. And if there are some activities that they would like to implement and we will not be able to do it with them, we really know our region, we know who to reach, and we can always find the right institution or organization to cooperate with. So feel free to get in touch with us, and we can definitely work something out.
Thanks. And I have another one, Zdenek, if I may. Somebody's asking, do you ever participate in projects of technical assistance, service contracts as opposed to grants? And if so, is there, according to you, any considerable difference for your organization?
Not really. Usually when we do projects that are for SMEs support or in general culture or education, it's something that really does not require that high amount of expertise. But I can tell that we have one project that is concerning the environment. It's about pesticides, and to be honest, for me, it's a quite heavy topic. So that's the place where I really appreciate the professional that is part of my team, that I can always rely on their expertise and opinions, either during the meetings or when we are preparing good practices or whatever.
Okay, I saw another question come by. It is, could you name deciding factors for Rera or yourself that determine whether you will join a bid? So imagine somebody calls you and asks, okay, Zdenek, we were working on this idea. What are the factors that would decide whether you join the bid or not?
Usually it's the background that we have around us. So for example, if we do not like exclude any fields in which you can implement projects, because we orient, as I said, on everything. It can be support of SMEs, it can be education, environment, it can be any kind of topic. What is key for us is if we are facing this kind of problem in our region, and if we can implement such a project as other partners, I think it's the most important thing here. That, for example, if I should consider this environment pesticides project, we used to have issues with this pesticide. So we have the background here, we have the dump site and so on. So we can take place in this project. But if we wouldn't have this kind of problem here, of course we would not join the consortium only to join it. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, for those of the people that are still not gone hungry, the hangers-on, let's say, very courageous people, by the way, being so much on delay already, we have a practical exercise that will be led by my colleague Esteban Pelayo that should now be starting to appear. Voila. I have dropped earlier in the chat the link to the document that leads Esteban's mock proposal, where he will try to teach you some practical tips. It's a bit of a more challenging thing, but it's very interactive, so I hope that you hang on. Esteban, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you will enjoy the practical exercise. We don't have much time, but the most important thing you have already is to take a specific proposal where you could start preparing a project. We are going to discuss about that moment, the beginning of preparing proposals and win some grants for your association. So please, Ulises pass the slide, and I would like Alberto to launch the first question. The first question is about what you know about Horizon 2020 of European proposals. If Alberto could launch the first question, I will be grateful. Okay. The idea is to know if it is the first time you know about that, if it is just if you have participated in project, or if you have won proposal. In any case, it will be something really interesting for you, because it's another example and another vision of how you prepare proposals. So don't worry, because I will, for the people who has not seen anything, we will start from the beginning. But I see that we have very interesting, very clever people in the training. I know there are participants not only from Europe but as well from different countries and Latin America and Eastern countries. So thank you very much for joining us in different hours. For some of you is still night, and for others we are in the afternoon. This is the good thing of being in an online conference. So this year we have many participants. So as you see, almost half of you have participated in project, and almost a quarter has already wrote. So we will have very clever answers to the questions. So please, could you pass to the next slide? Thank you very much. In the next slide, you will see what we are going to speak about. The main thing is we are going to work with a proposal where you will identify the different parts of the proposal and what are the main important issues, and we will finalize with a exercise about how to draft deliverables. As almost all of you know, the main elements, or the most difficult one in a proposal, is to write the excellence, the impact, and the implementation part. It's what you could see in the mock proposal that we have sent to you. The first part of the proposal is administrative part, and the last part of the proposal are related to ethics and the partnership. Normally in the project that we deal with as innovation agencies is not so relevant, the ethics and safety, but for that reason we are going to be focused on that. But we are going to start with how to search a cold topic. I appreciate if you see the slide, but in particular if you go out of my presentation and you try to do by yourself, the one who don't know. So if you pass the next slide, we are going to start with search a cold topic. Next, please, Ulises. What you have to do is Google participant portal Horizon 2020, and then you should appear to this place. I'm going to continue the presentation, but ideally, if you want to follow us well, you should do what I am saying at the same time. And if you get lost, you will see. So once you are here, you see in the bottom part, many different programs that are there in the platform. So it's not Horizon 2020, but many other programs that we have been discussed. For example, COSME that Senek mentioned twice in his presentation. And then you should click on find calls for proposal and tenders, because they are tenders as well. And then if you pass the next slide, so it's very easy. So for the proposal that we are going to think about and the call, I will appreciate if you call for innovation agencies. So it's the words that you should, and we will ideally appear in the call of peer learning for innovation agencies. Next slide, Ulises. Yes, you see that there are different calls with the topic of innovation agencies. Sometimes the call are belonging to the topics, the topic belong to different work programs. So you see in the bottom that the topic of peer learning for innovation agencies was launched at the beginning of the Horizon 2020 program in 2014. It has calls during 2016 and 17, and the ones that we are interested in is in the one of 2018 and 20. So if you click in the, ideally, I hope you are following by yourself. If you click in the first, and Ulises passed me the slide, so you will appear in the call topic of the proposal that we are going to discuss today. We are going, before looking at the proposal, it's necessary to see what is about the call. And tomorrow, my colleague Roser will explain will explain you as well how to find this type of information. So you see the title, Peer Learning of Innovation Agencies, and you see as well the deadline is an important information that you could see in the right part of the screen. And it is interesting for you to know that the 14th of October of 2020 is the next deadline. So you have an opportunity to prepare proposals. It's not a exercise in the air, so you could use that, and you have to be an innovation agency. And we have information from the European Commission services that this call for supporting innovation agencies will be there. What is supported by this call? Next slide, Ulises, please. It is supported collaboration among several agencies or entities, let's say, supporting innovation in companies, and collaboration in order to define better system and better support to the SMEs in innovation matters. The thing is that we have discovered that there is not still, despite we have been talking during years and years, we don't have a very good system, because the needs of the companies evolve very quickly, and we need as well the public administration or the entities of the public administration who support the companies to evolve with them. So in this sense, the call is about grouping several agencies to prepare something, services effective for those companies. As you see, all the calls in Horizon 2020 has the same structure. So you have the specific challenge, the scope, which is what I explained to you, and the expected impact. And this is important information in order to prepare a proposal aligned with what is there, because it's what is going to be evaluated. So ideally, if you have followed all my presentation, you have been able to find the call topics, and you know the call topics. Now let's go to another thing. Let's go to the proposal itself. Please pass the slide. And we are going to discuss the three main parts of the proposal. As I said to you, we have from one side the part A is administrative reference, who are the entity, what if it is for profit or non-profit, what are the contacts. And the part B is what is really evaluated, where we have the technical annex. And you have there an image of the technical annex, and ideally you will have download or give, because we think that is important in any training about European project management, to have at least an example that you could start to work with. And we have decided to use this one because Horizon 2020 is one of the most difficult and competitive programs. So ideally, theoretically, well, you know, many of you know, but theoretically everything will be easier. And we have there, as you know, the part B of the technical annex, we start with the excellence, the impact, and the implementation. Please, next one. In order to give you an overview of the proposal, in order to facilitate you the reading afterwards, we have imagined three partners that it doesn't exist. So the agencies of Berlin, Athens, and Helsingborg. And the topic is about how to get for the territories profit about the migrants that are coming to the European countries, as a refugees as economic migrants or by any other reason, and to establish from the economic point of view a way to get the most of these people who in many cases has a lot of knowledge, they have previous experience, and they are able to be entrepreneurs or can be easily engaged by companies. So the purpose of the proposal that we have imagined, it was never presented, but we think it could be useful for you, was to create first a label, because we need to evaluate who could be who could get the support from the development agencies, then design which are the measures that development agencies could take to integrate these migrants in the economy, and finally to design the program. And a program that is in the proposal could have mentoring, could have coaching, could have as well grants, because as you know, many of the development agencies manage grants, or could establish platform, or could define what we could do. The idea, now that you know the topic, the idea is to support the innovation in the territory with the people who come from elsewhere, not to consider them as a low-skilled people, but to consider them, which is the reality nowadays, that in the inflow of people going to work in a territory, there are many different profiles and can be used. And if we go to the next slide and we start to discussing the different things. So you see there that we have first a label in order to provide the support or not, and then we have different schemes in order to support the migrants individually, or as well the enterprise that are going to engage are going to engage the inflow of skilled people. And as you know, for that reason, we will have as a development agencies a program to support all of them. So let's go to the practice, and then we are going to ask you a couple of questions. So Alberto, if you could launch the 2 questions to our audience. The first question is very easy. It's about what are the main part of a proposal. And I explained to you several times, and probably you will be able to answer very well. And the second question is about what I'm going to look at my Slido in order. Yes, it's there. Okay, sorry, it's because I didn't show it. So if you could answer the second question, what are the main part of a technical proposal? I know the answer. I'm going to answer myself. Perfect. You are very clever. You are very clever. Really, really perfect. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Excellent impact and implementation. Thank you very much. This is the one. Yes. I think you could be the teacher, not me. Okay, and now one thing more complex about deliverables. What is a deliverables? Could you launch the next one? I didn't say to you, but probably you will know what is a deliverable, or what you consider is a deliverable in a project. Deliverables are very important because we are going to discuss afterwards and we are going to analyze in the mock proposal that you have. There is a well, probably there could be many mistakes, but there is at least 3 mistakes on purpose. We have created deliverables that are not correct on purpose. So, and we are going to identify them in order to help you. Yes, it's perfect. And deliverables is an output. Is one of the things that we produce in the project that could be useful for the other things. So perfect. So if you go to the, then let's go to the third part of the exercise, to the practical exercise. This was an introduction, and as you could, Ulises, if you could include the slides. Our idea is that you will go in the second part of the proposal. Thank you very much. Pass the slide. In the second part of the proposal, you have several, sorry, in the third part, you have several tables where you discuss how you are going to implement. And one of the ones who are more crucial is how you are going to develop the specific activities that you will do during the project. And we call that work package. As I told you, we have invented in the work package one deliverable that is not correct. Could you pass the next slide, Ulises? So as you see in my screen, but I hope you are able to see in the document that you have downloaded, the first work package is about management of the project. Every project has a work package about management. And even if this project is not very big, it's about 50,000 euros and don't has a very big partnership, just 3 development agencies, we need to have a management of project. Paula Santarén explained you very well how to do the management. I would like you to go to the 3 deliverables that we have created. And the first exercise will be to identify which one of these deliverables is not correct, is a fake, is something that we created. Alberto, if you could say, you could launch the first, I think it's the fourth question. Albert, okay. What do you think is the wrong answer there? I see that many of you, if you have difficulties getting the proposal, let us know, or write us an email, because it's something that is a very good output, very good example to copy paste. The idea we give to you in Word document to facilitate you the copy paste. So let's look what are the results. Yes, the establishment of a deposit in a non-fiscal paradise is a tax paradise is a fake deliverable. So if you present a proposal, please delete that one. Don't use at all. Please don't use at all. So why don't we launch the next question, the fifth question. The fifth question is about the deliverables related to the policy learning, as such. And we have there as well, it's an important work package. It's the most important one in the project because it's the main topic of the project. And we have there 4 deliverables. How to label, we spoke about that. How to design the support services, how to report the contacts, and the design option paper. So how to prepare the design option paper. I would like to say that design option paper is the output of this type of option. It's an interesting call because the only report that you have to provide to the European Commission is the design option paper. So if we could start seeing the results, perfect. No, it's divide. It's divide. Yes, so great. The report of contacts is what we don't think should be is a fake deliverable. So please delete that, because it's something that cannot be done. We cannot share personal information. This is something about ethics and data management that you will have a presentation tomorrow with Marina Martinez. And then the last part of the exercise is the third deliverable. And Alberto, if you could launch the poll, is about the communication work package. Communication is as well a work package that is always present in all the projects, because communication, dissemination, and exploitation of the results are very important. And we have created as well a fake deliverable that you have to identify. You are very clever people, and you are probably very quick in identify. We indicate that one of the deliverables and one of the important things is to establish a plan about how we are going to communicate and disseminate. Communicate and disseminate is not the same. Communicate, we address to a general public, and dissemination is more related to a specialized public in order to reuse and the results of the project. This is something which is very important and evaluating all the projects. As well, most of the project has a website and can be a deliverable. Another has different things that could be used as a promotional material, like a banner, roll-ups, leaflet, and there, perfect. Thank you very much, Alberto. The material acquisition was the fake deliverable. So this is all from my side. This is the finish of the nice practical exercise. Our objective was, as I told you, to give you the possibility to see a proposal. It was not submitted, but it's what we thought that could be something useful for, could be used to copy paste, because we did with our best intention. So in fact, if we were going to submit the proposal, if you delete the 3 deliverables, it will be able to be presented. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Esteban. If we can call up the other speakers to conclude, I would like to ask you a question to all of you. So Zdenek, Paula, and David, if Ulises can try to call them up again. I hope they didn't go yet to take lunch, because probably everybody's getting hungry.
No, we are here.
Okay, so after all your many years of experience in managing and implementing projects, could you share with us, and you can tell us as much or as little as you like, the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome in implementing one of the projects? It can be in any phase, in the writing, drafting phase. Was it a financial problem like an FLC issue or an administrative issue? Was it a matter of staffing, lack of knowledge or skills? So shall we go to Paula first?
Yes, well, I am thinking about 2 examples, and I will be with the first one. I will not say the project, neither names, but we had a big issue once upon a time with someone that brought in the stakeholders delegation a person that didn't belong to the stakeholders group. And we figured it out the very first day of the project meeting. So you can imagine, well, it created a bad environment in the partnership. And well, what can you do when the harm is done? I mean, what we did was talking to the partner, make sure that this wouldn't happen again, because European project meetings are business meetings and not trips or holiday trips. But this was an issue. It's difficult sometimes to control this, because you can be the lead partner, but you don't know the specifics of each regional stakeholder group. But it's something, yeah. I mean, maybe I should have devoted more efforts in controlling who was coming from where, but finally you have to trust on your partners too. So this was a big issue. And a second issue we faced with our policy officers was that we scheduled a project meeting in Scotland. And we wanted to integrate this meeting in the big, there was at that time, precisely when we had to celebrate the meeting, the Social Enterprise World Forum in Scotland. So we wanted to integrate the race meeting in the Social Enterprise World Forum, and we had to give a lot of explanation to our policy officers, which is very normal because they wanted to know why you want to do this event here inside, because it involved buying the tickets. The event was not free. We had only one free ticket per organization, or two, I don't remember, but we had to pay the tickets for the stakeholders group. So this was an issue, and it demonstrates, I mean, everything you can have already planned in the proposal and already approved, fantastic. When you want to make changes, be very specific and explain very well to your policy officer why you want to do the change. Finally, they accepted, and we had a wonderful meeting in Scotland, but here we lacked of experience at the beginning on how to solve this.
Okay, thank you, Paula, for sharing. I think this is a very useful lesson that we can all take something from. David,
yes.
What would be your biggest hurdle that you ever met in your many years of managing projects? We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Oh.
Let's give him a... Voila. David, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. You hear me?
Yes.
We do. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to describe two things then. Firstly, a general point, which is the difference between outputs and deliverables and long-term impact. A lot of project funders focus primarily on deliverables and short-term outputs. I have to say, I heard our Czech colleague say that he thought that European Union programs are more flexible than Czech national government programs. And I have to say, I find the opposite. That although I'm very sorry that we did Brexit, I do think that EU programs are often very, very inflexible. So it might say you must train 200 people. And if you only train 150 people, or you train 250 people, the Commission can get very cross and say, this is not what you should be doing. But they don't focus on the long-term impact of the activity. They just measure what are the immediate outputs. And I do find that frustrating. And I think that when you start a project, you don't always know exactly the problems or the circumstances. Things change, especially with, for example, COVID, for example. So how you deliver something can change during the course of a project. So measuring only deliverables outputs to me is very frustrating rather than looking at the long-term impact. Although it's true that measuring the long-term impact is complicated and can only be done after quite a long time. That's one general example. A second one is the difference between a project application written to get the money and a project application, which is basically a tool for implementation. And a long time ago, I made a proposal with the West Midlands in the UK, the Basque region of Spain, and Aquitaine in France, I think it was, to DG Enterprise to do some work about subcontracting the Japanese multinational companies in the car industry. And DG Enterprise came back with a very interesting project, but you can't have a project about Japanese multinational companies. You can only have a project about cooperation between SMEs in the region. So we changed it to focus on cooperation between SMEs, not multinational Japanese companies. And it was approved. But in the end, whilst the SMEs in our region wanted to work with Japanese multinational companies, they didn't want to work with each other. It was too different, too much cultural differences. So the project wasn't very successful. And really, we should have said, no, we won't proceed. If we can't do it with Japanese companies, we will not proceed on this occasion. It was a mistake to change the project simply to make the funder happy. So those are my two examples.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Yeah, it's just related to what David just said about what you say about measuring the impacts and the indicators. I completely agree. There is a thing in the RACE project and the Interreg Europe indicators, which I never understood, which is the communication or the impact indicator. So you have to provide, and I'm sure Tessa is super familiarized with this, with the social seats. but you have to count all the external impacts that your project had. So, for instance, if you, Eurada in Social Seeds made a publication and I don't know, this publication reaches 500 people, you never can count this as an impact. Although, if a very small blog on the internet that nobody reads publishes information about your project, this is an impact. So for me, these more innovative tools have to be developed to measure impact in European projects. I think that they are still living in the 20th century.
Okay, let's see what Zdenek says. Zdenek, what were your biggest hurdles that you want to share?
For me personally, it's definitely our FLC bureaucracy overload and inconsistency in the decisions they make and the things that they evaluate. Yeah. I don't want to go too much to the detail, but as you know, Czech Republic do not use euros, so all the projects we have to do in euros. So somewhere in the system you have to change the currencies, and one field office cannot agree with other field office on how it should really be. And today I have several projects in 2 cities, and I have to make the paperwork according to the place where I get my certification, because if I will do it other way, they will give it back to me. So that's, I think, the biggest struggle that we have nowadays.
Yeah. Let's hope that the European Commission is watching us, this recording, and they take a lesson as well. And Stefan, what is your biggest hurdle? I hope you're not going to say it's your Eurada colleagues, but you never know.
My colleagues in Eurada are wonderful, and they perform over what is requested. And in fact,
that's the right answer, Esteban.
You are a very lucky man, Esteban.
Yes. What they do normally, and which is my main concern, is try to involve all the members of Eurada in our project. And this is what is challenging, because, and from the point of view of a manager, even if the European Commission gives you 100% of the cost, in reality, you spend more always, not only during the lifetime of the project, but we have to think on the preparation. So we have to prepare a proposal. Most of them are rejected, and this is time consuming. And then once you start with the project, there are other things that most of you have said. And for example, Paula put you the idea of doing something in Scotland, or we combine with Agoradas, and we have different things that makes us to spend more money than what we get back to the project. Yes.
Could I add something?
Of course.
Yeah, just following on what Esteban just said. I have to go in a minute anyway, but a final thought from me. I do agree that the amount of effort that's put into project proposals which are unsuccessful is a huge waste of resources. In Bristol, we're trying to design a city fund which will take corporate social responsibility money to fund development projects. And we're trying to develop a so-called collective impact approach, which will not have competitive bids where all organizations prepare their proposals, submit them, and probably 9 out of 10 will be not successful, but to develop packages of proposals to address particular problems for a collaborative approach between participants. So I think this competitive approach to bidding at UK level, at national level, at European level is such a huge waste of resources that really we need to rethink that. And if the European Commission do listen to this proposal, I'm sure they won't listen to a British person, but they might listen to all of us. This is a really important lesson, and I will have to go in a minute, but thank you for the opportunity. I just put my email addresses on the chat to the organisers, and I will send through some materials to send on to all the participants via Eurada. So thanks very much. Goodbye from the UK, and have a good rest of the conference.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You all have to wave now. Esteban, you have to wave.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. See you.
So I think David is not the only one going hungry. Maybe one final thought, Anybody? In which case, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank our wonderful speakers and our wonderful audience for hanging on this long, by the way, because we are well over time, obviously. Esteban, thank you for preparing this nice exercise. Paula and Zdenek, thank you for sharing your experience and projects. I know you will be very soon with us again. And I hope to see you tomorrow back in the summer course. You won't see me, it will be my colleague Owen who will receive a speaker from the Commission and a few other colleagues who will speak to you about proposals again, but more about tenders and calls. So I encourage you to join in again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.